Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special meeting of the Edenton Town Council this evening, followed by our regularly scheduled committee meetings for the month of October. We have agendas in the back of the room for each of these, and we'll start now into our special meeting agenda. We'll begin with interviews tonight. We have two positions open, one on the Historic Preservation Commission and another one on the Board of Adjustment. Jessica Eberling is here, interested in the spot on the Historic Preservation Commission, and George Little is with us, interested in expressing his interest to serve on the Board of Adjustments. Thank both of you for coming, and I'll turn the process over to Councilman Biggs, who's chair of our Administrative Committee, and from that committee, the appointments are recommended back to the Town Council. So, Steve, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. And again, thank you all for your willingness to serve. We certainly appreciate it, and we're always looking for people to serve on these boards. This is a very simple interview. You've never been in one like it, I promise you. All we're going to do is ask you just a few questions, and if it's okay with you, Jessica, we'll start with you, and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to Edenton as a resident and all that. Give us a little background.
Okay, I work over at the Edenton Children Partnership. I also work with Tourism Development and the Chamber of Commerce, and do a lot of work with Anne Marie and Mayor Vaughn. Jennifer Harris is actually the one who told me about the Preservation Commission. She thought I'd be interested. I have a master's degree in public administration, but my emphasis is actually in community planning and urban design. So historical preservation was a big part of that. My dad's also an architectural engineer, so I spent a lot of time ripping out old houses, ripping down old houses on the inside and putting all the new stuff in. That was his specialty, was historic restoration. So I thought, well, I can offer a little insight. It's an interest of mine. I love downtown Edenton. I live on West Albemarle Street, and just finished a very long, almost 2-year renovation of that Craftsman home there. And so I just want to have a little say in what goes on, preserve what needs to be preserved, and help move Edenton forward where it needs to go forward.
Sounds good. Y'all want to follow up with some other questions?
Well, I know that you've had adequate experience with working with different people, both with Nancy, with McGlory, with myself, and people. And certainly from your educational background, it fits really well. Is that really what spurred you with it, or the fact that you were living in town and you want to participate in the town?
I want to participate in the town, but it's probably, if I was going to step out and use my own time for something, I wanted it to be something I was interested in. And historic preservation is something I am interested in. It's one of the reasons I love living here.
Well, you're certainly in the middle of it.
I am.
Thank you.
Jessica, sometimes on these boards you have to make some really tough decisions, and some decisions that are not very popular. Whatever decision you make, you're going to upset someone, whichever decision you make. You follow the guidelines and rules of the UDO, but they're not always popular. So tell us about some experiences that you've had that prepared you to make these tough decisions that are not so popular.
A lot of my experience has probably been a little more in the background. Prior to coming to Edenton, I actually was a contractor, a defense contractor at the Air Force Academy, which is never a popular position, and it was especially not popular in the position that I went for. My job was to go and convince the Air Force Academy to brass, if you will, behind a new program that the Department of the Air Force wanted to implement. They were not happy about having me sent there. They were not happy where the Defense Department wanted to put me. And the other contractors on the installation were not very happy about the fact that I was sent and put over other contractors in an entirely different organization. So being popular is very tough, and you have to make those decisions. Part of my job was going out and convincing people to give up their private property rights to protect a military base, which is also not very popular, especially in Colorado. So, I mean, that's about as much probably experience as being unpopular as I can give you. I can tell you there was a lot of sleepless nights on that one, and there was a lot of my company not being happy, and generals not being happy, and Defense Department secretaries not being happy, but I made it through it. That's actually how I ended up in Edenton.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
I just got one quick question. I mean, you know that we rely heavily on the State Historic Preservation Office, and so you feel like you could help follow what they tell you. And
I mean, I read through the guidelines Anne Marie sent me. They seem theoretically cut and dry. I can see where there might be a few issues when you start coming up against, you know, things that may be unpopular or things property owners may want to do. My house was apparently purple at one point in time. I can see how that probably did not go over very well. Thankfully, I'm not in the historic district, so. But, yeah, I mean, the historic preservation is put there for a reason. It's not meant to be draconian. It's not meant to, you know, take away your house and say you can't do anything with it. It's just asking you to be aware of the fact that it needs to be preserved and it needs to be preserved properly and to please follow the rules. So I think with the guidelines being as clear as they are, it makes it a lot easier to make a decision even if it's not one that's popular.
Anyone else? Thank you again for your time. Do you have any questions of us?
I do not. I feel pretty comfortable in it. I've read all 115 pages of that.
You were an Air Force contractor, I can believe that. With no problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
George, we're going to turn to you and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to Edenton.
A woman brought me to Edenton. I grew up in the area. I grew up in Elizabeth City. I went to undergraduate at UNC Chapel Hill. I got my master's in business administration from ECU. I've been living in Edenton for about 10 years. I married a girl who grew up here. We have two sons, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They keep us busy. I've had, as far as work experience, I was in real estate for 10 years in Elizabeth City, in the area, but mainly in Elizabeth City. And I've been working with the hospital for the last 3 years as a planning analyst, which has a lot to do with strategy and numbers and where, you know, certain things are needed by the hospital, whether it be doctors or services or that sort of thing.
I'll admit up to the rest of you.
Mr. George, can you just tell us why you're interested in serving on this board?
One of the main reasons is I just wanted to be involved with the community. This is something that definitely interested me, but it was, you know, something where I felt like I needed to give back and be part of the community, and I felt like this was something, an opportunity to, you know, one of the distinct things about Edenton is the historical, how that's been kept up, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to sort of protect that, and that's what.
I feel like your background in real estate would really be helpful too.
Yeah. We dealt with that a lot in real estate. I mean, there was always people that were calling up and saying, well, can I use this piece of property for this, you know, can I do a nursery in the middle of a residential neighborhood and that sort of thing. So, you know, it definitely would come in handy. I've dealt with those sorts of things and answering those questions.
George, you got any questions about us?
Not currently.
You will have.
Great answer there, too.
Jim, any questions?
Hmm.
Same thing, that Jimmy asked, earlier. Any problem on decision-making that, you know, the worst thing is, when you make a decision sitting behind this desk, and you walk out of that door, you still got to be neighbors with everybody you just made the decision with, and you try to still be the friend and their neighbor, so it's tough sometimes.
I've found in most businesses, you know, you're never gonna make everybody happy, so you just have to do what the right thing is and, you know, make the rational decision and defend that decision. So no, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for your interest, and, you know, we appreciate, you know, people willing to serve on these boards, and, we totally understand if you have to leave. We
Just save my wife for my 2 sons. They were all over this evening, so.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you, George.
Mayor, that's all we have.
Thank you, Steve. The second item on our agenda this evening is consideration of adoption of the Chowan Comprehensive Transportation Plan maps and a resolution. And that will be our action issue for tonight with respect to this topic, is to proceed with the signing and forwarding forward the resolution that will accompany this presentation. I'd like to welcome Marina Wilson. That's you. She's with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, and Angela Welch with Albemarle Tourism Transportation Planning Office for the Albemarle region. So welcome to both of you ladies. We look forward to your explanation of what this process is all about and how it pertains to our community in Edenton and to the future for our transportation needs. So whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Angela Welsh from the Albemarle RPO. I'm the planning director, and I work for 10 counties around the region. Our RPO includes 10 counties all the way around the Sound. Furthest north, Gates County, south, Hyde County, west is Chowan, then we go all the way to Currituck.
Can you turn that speaker around to your face?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
That's gonna help, I think.
Does that work?
Mike,
Okay. Can you hear me?
thank you.
Okay. While they're getting the presentation together, I'm going to quickly just go over kind of how we got here and what a comprehensive transportation plan is. A CTP, or comprehensive transportation plan, or CTP, is a 30-year vision of how the county and the town would like their transportation network to look like. It's adopted by the town, the county, endorsed by the RPO, and also adopted by the Board of Transportation. Now, there's no funding tied to it. The DOT does not have to fund or construct these projects, neither does the town. So this is, again, just a vision. It can be amended every 5 years. The RPO comes back to see if you'd like to amend it, or you can request amendments yourself. Again, where we are with it, we started, February of 2014 is where we started. We had a steering committee made up of representatives from the town. I think there were some business owners and some bicycle enthusiasts on the committee as well. We've had 2 public workshops through the process, developed a vision for the CTP, and worked on these maps that Vernia will be presenting to you. And at the end of her presentation, you will see that the RPO has already endorsed this without your adopting it. The reason we did that, we endorsed it contingent upon you adopting it, because we didn't want to wait until the next RPO meeting at the end of January and have your plan sit there for a good almost 4 months. So if there are changes to it, or if you want to hold off on the adoption, that's certainly, we certainly welcome that, and we'll work around and adopt or endorse the CTP in January. So I'm going to turn it over to Vernia, and she can go through where we are now and explain the maps to you.
Again, I'm Vernia Wilson. I'm the transportation engineer for the Chowan County CTP. Angela was going through where we are in the process. I highlighted where we are here as the adoption. The last time I was here, we were doing the collect project endorse data portion of the project. We have collected and put together some maps that I'm going to show you guys. I think Angela was running through the comprehensive transportation plan, which is a multimodal document that we put together we're trying to do every county in the state. And it consists of the highway map, the public transportation and rail, the bicycle, and the pedestrian maps. With that information, it also shows recommendations that we put together as with those workshops that she mentioned as well. We tried to make sure we covered everything, but sometimes we don't get everything that we want. And at this particular phase, we've listed the things that were mentioned most popular for the Chowan Edenton area. So the maps are going to show existing projects, needs improvement, and some recommendations on new location. So and I also, on everybody's spot there, I put a copy of the presentation. It's something you can't see, and I also put a copy of Chapter 2, which is our recommendations. And I also gave everybody a pamphlet on a better explanation of what the CTP is. And in there is also highlighted where we are in the process. And if anybody needs one, I have some extras back here on the table if you would like a copy of the presentation or the Chapter 2 information. And it's also located online. I have the websites here. If anybody needs it, definitely welcome. So the first map is the highway map. Highway map generally does all the highway projects, and right now our major project, we have two major projects, the Eastern Connector, and this comes from the Edenton thoroughfare plan that was done in 1993, and it was just the Eastern Connector out connecting US 17 to the airport, and this is one of the options that was the alternative that was higher on the list of connecting it with Hobbs Lane, going out that way. And it's also in your Chapter 2 with the write-up. Then we have two more major. I have the insets. So from the first one, we have two insets. The first one is at the top right, where it has the Eastern Connector, and then you see the one to the left, which is a blow-up of Edenton, which is this map right here. This is the US 17, which is just to upgrade it to interstate standards. Because I know everybody's familiar with down here close to Clemens County, there is a turn off of the interstate, and then that would change once it updates in interstate standards, would take away the option to turn off, make it an interchange instead of being able to turn it directly off of the highway when it's upgraded. So that was the recommendation for US 17, and then the Western Connector was used for behind the hospital, going Luke Street, extending it out over a new location to better to connect with Martin Luther King, and that was pulled also from the Edenton thoroughfare plan from '93. And we just went ahead with the verbiage just to connect the connect the town better for EMS, emergency services, vehicles, and things like that. And with those major improvements, we had to do some minor improvements, so we suggested Hobbs Lane to be upgraded 12-foot lanes, paved 12-foot lanes, and then Luke Street, of course, is going to have to be upgraded, and so is Reginald and Mary Avenue, excuse me. Thinking about you, Anne Marie. Reginald and Mary Avenue, sorry about that. That goes along with the major adjustments that major improvements that we were recommending. And this is the public transportation and rail map. Currently, there is a live rail that comes in and stops at the construction yard right there in town. And so you have to, and then it doesn't, so if you look at the bottom here, you have how it comes in. It says it comes in and then it's not valid. I think if you can see it on that one.
I think that's the problem. We can't see it there and we can't see it
read
here.
it here.
Okay.
I mean, it's,
What I can do is get you, I've sent you the maps, I have the maps located online as well, and they are PDF and they're bigger. But on the map, it says where it's not a valid rail, but so it shows where it stops at, but it stops right at that construction company right there on Freemason Road Drive.
what construction company is that?
The, concrete plant.
Oh,
The
okay.
company.
Okay.
What was that question?
That's what construction company was talking about? They were talking about the concrete company.
And that is the yellow line. So now the green line is a future Greyhound bus route that's going to go from Raleigh to Norfolk. It's just a proposed route, so that's why it's a dotted line. And it's going to go from Raleigh to Norfolk with stops in Little Washington, Edenton, Elizabeth City, and it's all proposed, but it's included in the plan as well. And then we have the bicycle map. So this is the third map on the plan. So here we have an inset, and it shows a lot of the recommended widenings. Of course, a bicycle lane is going to be very expensive to put in, so what we would suggest is the road being upgraded to be a little bit wider, shoulders, so it could accommodate bicycle riders. And Chowan County does have one state route, which is number 3, and it comes down from from Gates County, and it goes out into Bertie County. Now, we are suggesting that it be rerouted because it shows that it goes on to 17, which is not safe. So we're trying to see if we can route it through Washington County down 94, 90, 37, and 32.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming that the dotted green
Mhm.
is proposed, but if I understood properly, some of it is in place now.
This green? Or this green? This green is just a
That
sign.
one?
Or are you talking about the yellow?
Well,
Am I on the right map?
maybe I'm the only one having a problem.
Which map are you
Well,
talking
I just turned that over. I can't see it. I mean, I hate to say it, it's no good to me.
And the,
It's gonna start here.
yeah,
This is way mine.
but I think the
Can I
bike
go-
route is,
Can I get online on that? On that?
Yes, and then we sent you the link with the agenda, which were you able to check with the Dropbox?
yeah, and I went online and, worked through it the best I could.
I can't open mine.
Oh, yes, Kitty Hawk.
It's 70 to 55. 70 to 55. I mean, if we could figure that piece of it out.
Well, the bypass part of Edenton will be part of the interstate.
Well,
And
yeah,
it's the most interstate ready of any
Yeah,
stretch
yeah.
east of Rocky Mountain. That's what I was told, and that's why they put the Chowan bypass from the bridge, Chowan River Bridge,
Right.
through to,
But they just did, why wouldn't they have made that Bertie County part all limited access to it when they did a new road?
Well, it's, the new part is interstate.
I know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
just-
but the rest of it. So now what you're gonna have to do is when you come off, coming from there, when you come off of the super highway, as they call it, is you'll kind of go to the right, all the way down to the bridge, with a brand new house.
So they'll bypass the bypass?
and
That's the
Weather,
best way you can do it.
yeah.
That's like when you're going up the eastern shore, they do that all the time. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
It's certainly bad planning,
Oh, yeah.
bad planning. Is it any way to get through Hartford without moving? No.
No, you gotta go loop around that too.
You bridge the whole
But
world.
nobody 10 years ago even dreamed about having an interstate connect Raleigh with North.
Yeah,
Gotta be correct.
So you gotta do some major things. There's some,
I'm trying to get a handle on how to read, that's, of course, much clearer. Looking at the map on the right,
You need me to blow it up a little bit?
the dot, tell us what that, if you don't mind, please, ma'am.
Okay, these dots are multi-use paths right here. Is this correct? This is what I'm?
Okay, see, we can't read this.
Legend.
I can get the legend,
Okay.
I just want to verify, this is the line I need you to describe, correct?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So that's multi-use.
Okay, so, the green is off-road, we don't have any off-road. On-road is what I was describing first, was the,
So that's a recommended multi-use.
so that's
The yellow.
recommended multi-use, yeah, like, when they
So-
run, walk, off-road, run and walk, and probably bicycle.
Off-road, but that's the green. So that
Green is
would be
off-road, but
also
We
the
don't have
yellow.
any green, we have yellow.
The recommended, when you say recommended, it's just a small separation from the road. Off-road would be much larger.
Mhm.
So you're looking like this could be right alongside the road. That's the difference between.
So does any of this exist now?
No, that's why it's dotted, that's when it's recommended. So if it was a solid line, it would be existing, and then if it needs improvement, we
Okay.
have the black.
Both the
Slash
green
green.
and the yellow. I'm getting
Correct.
it.
Correct, you're right.
I couldn't get that together before coming. I tried.
No problem, I'm here for questions, no problem. And then we don't have any off-road, everything is either close to, like she was saying.
Well, bottom line, isn't this a 1993 wish list? And
Yeah.
has it been updated any since 1993?
So this is more wishes now, we've updated the graphics basically.
In 22 years from now, somebody's gonna be sitting here doing the same thing.
Well, maybe not 22, maybe 5.
No,
Yeah.
it'll be 22. If we're lucky.
Very good point.
Won't be us.
No, it won't be us.
Could be. Could be some of us.
Not say me.
Well, that's right, true.
Okay, so this was the bicycle map, and then the next one would have been the pedestrian map. I'll scroll it down to see the bottom first, and then I'll scroll up to the inset. So basically, all the yellow are the same from the previous map. The multi-use paths. Okay, so now, we had a
So our objective here is to accept or support this plan.
Correct, by resolution that the county's already approved, and if we don't do it now, it'll be back here in January.
And if you see some recommendations that you think should be on here, I'll take those as well.
Yeah,
I understand that.
We did have a couple of comments from the public, I think we got these last week, to revise. Evidently, a couple of the sidewalks shown on here that show existing, the brown lines that say they're existing aren't there. And there was a couple of comments to add, a couple sidewalks, as well. So we would have,
Did you say sidewalks?
mm-hmm,
But this is a wish list, unfunded.
That's correct.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, so,
you'd have to compete for funding, through the STI, which is the way. So we did have, stand in front of everybody, I'm sorry. We did have a comment to, there's no sidewalk behind the hospital, and, this person would like to see, they see a lot of, disabled, young, old, and small children, walking by there, so they wanted to see that, added to the map. And, they also proposed sidewalks west of Granville on Carteret and Freemason Streets, and, to correct those ones that aren't existing, so we can add those into the map too.
I thought we just recently heard DOT wasn't gonna be in the sidewalk business anymore. Is that not true?
This plan is, is part of, this portion is contained in the CTP. So this is a process that we, as planners, have to go through as far as putting in a map, to show what you guys might need in the future. Now, as far as
No.
putting it down, that's a whole nother situation.
They do still fund bicycle.
Figure that out at the outset.
So we sit here and we plan to put sidewalks somewhere that DOT doesn't do sidewalks anymore.
They do sidewalks, you just have to compete for funding for them. Now with the STI law that became law in 2013, all projects have to compete for funding. So your road widening, your bicycle and pedestrian projects, ferries are in the bucket now, highways, aviation projects, all those are basically put into one pot of money, and we score them, and the highest scoring projects get funded. Now, in our region, we're not really seeing bike and ped projects funded at all.
There used to be a pot of money for, it was called urban sidewalk
Right.
projects.
Right.
And we have worked and partnered with DOT extremely well over the last 20 years. But we were told that that funding has gone away, that there is no more urban spot sidewalk funding.
There used to be funding for, road widening too. You could just go to the division and ask to have it widened. Now you have to go through this whole process as well. So it's just been, the funding has been completely realigned.
We have some major sidewalk needs. We've got one corner down here I preach about all the time, but it's a very, very dangerous corner that's water going into Granville. Somebody's gonna get a hit there. And I don't know,
What's the Granville on Carteret or Freemason?
on Water Street, at the corner of Water and the end of Granville, that's a major curve there, there's no sidewalk, and people walk in the middle of the road. It's a blind curve. It's a combination of the worst circumstance you could possibly have. We're just asking for major trouble.
So
I-
the thing, I'm sorry.
I want to redirect this back to the purpose. We're getting down in the weeds of something here that we can't do anything about, other than we can approve the vision that has been laid out, as I understand it goes forward for roughly 30 years, correct?
That's correct.
And there'll be opportunities to add to, take from, apply for money, and so forth at a later time. The purpose of this is to just get, and this has been contributed to by citizens who've served in the capacity of helping the planners putting together these maps and so forth. And quite frankly, I think we're spending too much time on things that don't matter at this point in time, and we have other business we need to take care of.
Would you like a motion to approve?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the planning maps as have been presented. Any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, we will execute the resolution on behalf of the town and send it forward through whatever channels it needs to be sent forward with. And thank you ladies again for coming and sharing your time with us.
Thank you. And if I can add one thing, you'll actually receive a bound document. What you're approving is just the recommendations and the maps tonight. You do receive a bound document. The DOT doesn't consider a plan a whole document like most local governments do, but Vernia will draft that. You'll get a chance to review it. Make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. You don't have to adopt that, but that will be coming out, and something that I guess Anne Marie can share with everybody to make sure, so you'll see what the draft document looks like before it's bound.
Okay.
Thank you.
My number, her number, website, email address.
Okay,
If you have anything after this.
okay. Very good.
Monday through Friday.
All right. Thank you, Vernia. Thank you, Angela. All right. Other items on our special meeting agenda, picking up now with the real estate exchange contract. Anne Marie, would you please take us through the remaining three items?
Be happy to, Mayor. At the last committee meeting, the council reviewed the proposed real estate exchange contract that the town attorney has prepared. The council is willing to exchange two lots on North Oakham Street, 506 and 510, and they're side by side. I don't know why the numbers make it look like they're not, but they are side by side lots, in exchange for the owner of 139 East Albemarle Street donating her lot to us. And that is the last remaining lot that we need to acquire for the police station property. Ms. Williams wants to stay in the neighborhood, and we're thrilled and delighted that she does. And it actually is less expensive for the town to move her house to this lot than it would be to actually buy her out. And for her, it's much more advantageous because she probably could not find a house of comparable value and size inside the city limits for what we would have to pay her. So it really is a win-win. She's been a great lady to work with, and we're ready to move forward with that. So if the council can approve that contract for the real estate exchange as presented.
Okay, you've heard the explanation from our manager. Anybody care to bring forward a motion to that?
I'll bring that motion forward.
I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. All right, thank you very much. Next item, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. The next item is the approval of the contract to actually move the house from 139 East Albemarle to 506/510 North Oakham Street. We solicited proposals from house movers. One was from Worth Hare, and the other one was from a mover, I believe, in either Camden or Currituck. They were amazingly competitive, practically right on the money.
It was amazing how close they were.
It really was, within, $100.
Yeah.
And the scale tipped to Mr. Hare because in his proposal, he included that he would be responsible for getting the permits. So when you factored that, he was just about $200 less than the other fella. And the cost to move, the contract is, I'm looking at my numbers, $46,500. That is the actual move, and we're hoping that the council will approve that tonight. And our purchasing agent, Bud Powell, has been working with Worth. They've laid out exactly where the house is going to be located, and Mr. Hare is ready to pour the foundation so that it can cure for while before the house is actually moved.
I move we accept this contract with Work Air.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the low bid as just described. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Very good. We'll get that moving, figuratively and literally.
Mayor, the last item on the special meeting is a resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditure for the house moving expense for the new police station. As you know, we will be financing the construction of the police station, and the IRS rules require that if you have if expenses are incurred prior to the debt being issued, that you have to go on record officially declaring that you're going to reimburse yourself for that expense. So it's important that this resolution be approved. The cost to move not only includes Mr. Hare's quote or contract, but there are other incidentals. We have to put in a driveway, a fence, make provisions to connect to water and sewer. And so we added another $10,000 total that we expect to spend and be reimbursed once the loan proceeds are received by the town.
All right, so Chair would entertain a motion to adopt a resolution to reimburse expenditures.
So moved.
Motion and a second to do so. Further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Thank you very much. And that will conclude our special meeting for tonight, so we can roll into our regularly scheduled committee meetings, beginning with administrative, which is chaired by Councilman Biggs. Please, sir.
Well, Mayor, I got the fun part tonight. We got 3 items on our committee tonight. To review the proposals of redevelopment for the former NC Commission office building, whatever. It is my understanding that the last time that we met, we talked about we wanted to come up with some conditions that we were going to put on the building. And as far as I know, as of Friday afternoon, you had not received any conditions that anyone had come up with, correct?
Other than what we had talked about in terms of his preservation covenants, but nothing
Right.
since that meeting. You're right.
Nothing else.
Yep.
We also talked about a sale or a lease, and it seemed like this, not only just this committee, but the full board was interested in leasing the property. And so we instructed Ms. Knighton to ask each one of the proposal people if that would work in their schedule, and the answer to that has been
No.
We've not.
Both developers indicated that their model to make this business work is it's critical that the real estate component be included, that they have to own the asset, because then they're able to take advantage of depreciation expense. So neither one was interested in a lease.
okay. And
Were either one of them interested in tax credits?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Mr. Glover was, I'm sorry, you're right, he did say he is interested in tax credits, and that his understanding was that ownership is easier, which you all saw from that article that we had at the last meeting. Leasing for tax credits is like, requires 39 years.
39 years and 1 month.
well, and then number 3, we had a proposal from the Edenton Yacht Club that came in Thursday, I guess it was. We had it Thursday evening. So it sounds like that we got a lot of reviewing to do. And I don't know that it should be entirely up to this administrative committee to review all this. Now, the conditions that we want to put on the building, besides just the historic part of it, is several of us have been to the property, looked the property over. And I've got some questions about trash. I got some questions about if we allow a restaurant to go in there, what do you do about the oil, the grease? What do you, I mean, there's a lot of questions that for some reason or other I can't get an answer to. And the reason that I can't get an answer to is because I can't get it wrapped around my head. If you got that building sitting right here and there's no property around it, how are you going to, where are you going to make a drive so that they can drive in and make deliveries? Where are you going to put a dumpster? Where are you going to put this grease bin? I mean, that's certainly some things that we've got to talk about.
And I think the people doing the proposing need to tell us where because I mean, it needs to be seamlessly integrated into a neighborhood where you have a house next door. I mean, it needs to.
Well, but the other part is, if there's no property there to put it there, that means it's got to go on our property somewhere.
Is that, to make it a little bit easier for you to explain, you may want to take a look at this.
I took a great long look at it Friday afternoon.
Well, the property itself has been expanded from what we originally thought.
But not to a great degree. The only
Big
thing
enough to
that
put a
it
dumpster.
expanded to
No,
is
it's
the
not.
back side where currently, that's the back of Waterman's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's big, well,
There are three.
it's not big enough to put a dumpster on because it's not big enough to have a place that you can drive a truck down to get to the dumpster.
And you do have to be considerate of the neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if this is the correct time to interject this or not, but as a good friend of ours used to say, one man's opinion, but I think the idea from the gentleman from Texas needs to be thrown out to start with. He wants us to give him the property, and then he's going to take the tax credits and this type of thing. That's not going to happen. We're not going to give away that property. Okay? We need, this town, this is not going to be popular, I'll go ahead and tell you up front, but this town needs tax base. We are not getting any new tax base whatsoever. We lost the taxes that we get for, what is it, the
franchise utility, not
Business tax.
business privilege
Business,
license.
thank you, privilege license tax. We lost that. That was about $68,000 that we lost. We lost the income that we got from the Northeast Partnership every month, which was a considerable amount of money. They changed the way that the power bill monies are appropriated. That cost us money. We've lost, what, Emery, about 25% of our workforce. We just can't continue to increase the taxes on our individual taxpayers, property taxes, ad valorem taxes. We can't continue to do that. So we have got to have some way, somehow, that we can increase our ad valorem taxes and taxes that are coming in. So far as putting something there like a museum, I've heard that certain people want a museum there. That's going to cost us money. That's not going to bring in any money. It's going to cost us money. And I can't see doing anything that's going to cost us more money. Again, I say, we need tax base. My 2 cents worth.
I agree. But I think Anne Marie made the arrangement with the implant economic impact study. And if you look at the impact study, share with you a comparison of them. There's $86,000 over a 5-year property tax revenue on the man from Texas.
But Bob, we're not gonna give him that property. It's not gonna happen.
That's your opinion.
It ain't gonna happen. It's a
I
strong
mean,
opinion.
those two models, I thought one of them got thrown out anyway. So one of the models wasn't found to be financially viable.
No, I didn't read it that way at all. No, I've got the reports, but they certainly didn't say that.
Well, I don't want this to drag on tonight like it has in the past under a committee meeting.
I agree, but at the same time, you don't want to drag it into a decision that we will regret.
I'll agree with that 100%. So,
That becomes a matter of opinion too, whether you regret it or agree with it.
That's true.
so we have talked about, and unfortunately, we didn't have a meeting last month. Anne Marie put in our packet that, did you want to go ahead and move forward having a public comment time, public hearing? And we're not ready for that anywhere, shape, or form. I don't think.
I agree.
We have not heard back from, and some might say it's a different entity. We hadn't heard back from the committee that the mayor has put together. I think that ought to be part of this decision.
Has that already been put into motion?
Yes, we got a meeting on Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, you want me to detail that for a second?
Sure. Help yourself.
Okay,
I'm speaking now, I shouldn't.
I'll interject it while as long as you bring it up. I have contacted several people in the community and they have agreed to serve, and Sambo's agreed to be our liaison. And the charge to the committee is going to be how can we increase, enhance, and otherwise bring greater vitality to our waterfront through the use of water sports, sailing, paddleboarding, canoeing, kayaking, whatever the case may be. They will be at liberty to discuss any and everything, including the location of where the operating focal point for these waterfront activities will take place. The people who have agreed to serve, I'll go ahead and share those names with you, and then you can get back to the business of the building. Jessica Everling, who was just here to interview, she would represent the tourism component for the community. Brian Fitzsimmons, he's a former yacht club Commodore, he's agreed to serve. Shannon Ray is the county recreation director, she's going to serve. Brian Donnelly, sailfish instructor and current yacht club Commodore, has agreed to serve. Tracy Benkusky, who's an avid kayaker and paddleboarder, she's agreed to serve. And Kermit Layton has agreed to serve. And Kermit previously served on our Waterfront Development Commission when we did the bulkhead and the breakwater to create the safe harbor to begin with. All those people have agreed to serve. Anne Marie contacted them electronically today, and they hopefully will have their first meeting on Friday. So we do have an advisory group in place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think those
And
willing to
hopefully we
serve.
can enhance that service. I mean, my goal through this committee is to figure out a way to make it a lot better than it has been. And to bring revenue into town through sailing and water sports and things like that.
Well, and other comments, and it's not just when we're sitting here at nights. I know y'all have heard, this has been almost as important to a lot of people as changing the speed limit from 35 to 25 on Granville Street 15 years ago. Maybe a little more important. But when we hear from your committee, or the committee that you've been assigned to, and we're still talking about, up here, we're still talking about leasing the building, not selling it. You talked about we need more revenue in this town. There could be an absolute great opportunity for someone to go in that building besides just the two proposals that we've got, because when we sent them out, we were going to sell the building. Our fault. We didn't think of it, didn't think it out as far as we should have, I guess, if we are now considering leasing. There could be somebody that comes up and says, guess what? I know 10 people that want to go in business somewhere, but they don't want to be that heavily involved in a building. We could have, 10 entrepreneurs that go in that building, whether it's somebody that does paddle boards, actually the sale of paddle boards. We could have people that are selling other products in there that bring more people to us. I don't know what the real answer is going to be. Have no idea. But I know we're a long way from where I thought we'd be at this time.
Long way from decision making.
Absolutely, we are.
I agree.
And, some of the conditions we got to look at. Again, we got to know what we can actually put there.
And it's got to be something that fits in a residential situation and in a public park. I mean, that's not everything.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've been a proponent of selling this building since we brought it up 2 years ago. And I really haven't changed. I thought the idea of a lease was just that, to explore it. I mean, if we moved to leasing only, it went by me. So, in my opinion, to quote Councilman Stallings over here, coming from just one person, if you go lease only, you can kiss the two proposals we have goodbye, because they've already said no. They're not going to participate in a lease with us. So if it's lease, it's start all over. If it's sale, you still have two proposals to consider. And what I'm afraid of is we will find a way each and every time we get to this point to not do anything. And the need for that building to be put into some constructive use is evident. I mean, it's recognized as one of the best unused assets that we have because of its location and accessibility to the waterfront. So,
I'll agree, Mayor, but I don't want to sell that building just to anybody and everybody without the conditions that if all of a sudden they don't make it, we have no way of ever getting that property back. And if it's that important, we need to sit up here and make the very best possible decision that we can make.
the leasing keeps the added responsibility on the town, potentially anyway, for maintenance, upkeep, a lot of things, unless you can get the proposed party going in there to do a triple net lease or something of that order, whereby they pay for the insurance and everything else related to the property. So I think the lease, to my way of thinking, is more out of the realm of likelihood than in it. And but
it might be, but I think we would be doing a disservice if we didn't try.
we got turned down twice.
Well,
Steve, do you think we just need to have a public, or mayor have a public hearing and see what the public thinks?
I don't know that we're at that stage yet. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't know that you're at that stage.
Well, can we get conditions established? I think that would be a logical first step, to come up with a set of covenants that whether you sell it, lease it, or whatever, the parties will know what their expectations are. That's going to be a stumbling block until we do
It is.
that.
It is.
I mean, we can't go forward with either one of the two parties we have now, or with any new party that might be interested should you choose to go that route. until you get the conditions established. So,
I agree wholeheartedly.
I mean, we're sitting here
The covenants can
moving the
make or
air
break
around,
the deal.
and yeah.
Well, I think that'd be something Hood would need to do.
What'd you say?
I mean, I think Hood would need to work on that.
I didn't hear you.
He said I thought that was something Hood should do.
Well, we gotta
Well,
put,
we've got to come up with what the ideas of them are. The Hood can certainly review them for legality, but
We can put any kind of covenances on it that we so desire,
You can put anything you want to on a building.
but what,
You can do anything you want to.
that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer, could we not go to Charleston or someplace that does this stuff on a daily basis and see how they've handled, or if they've handled the sale of public buildings on the waterfront or buildings that are for sale that are not, owned by the municipality? Do they have covenants on them to, protect the neighborhood and so forth?
I'm sure we can find.
Could you help us with that? Okay,
There should be something on the list, sir.
yeah.
Well, I would say at the council meeting, once again, I don't know that this should just come out of this committee. We've opened it up every time for anyone that sits here to say anything they wanted to say and have an opinion on it. So maybe it is one of those things we just take to the full council and let them work on it. But I think we should also address the new proposal that we got from the yacht club at that time also.
Well, I would prefer the yacht club proposal be turned over to the committee.
Okay.
And they can deliberate that as an option in their discussions, knowing that the yacht club has already brought a formal statement of what their intentions would be, or desires, the way they would like to see it move forward. And that's something that the committee could weigh against whatever other options they come up with. What do you think about that?
Sambo, may I ask, Sambo, when do you think that your committee might come up with some proposals to bring back to us for us to look at and this type of thing before we have a public hearing? And I think having a public hearing would be very advantageous, and maybe have them to bring us some positive things that they feel like that would go in and fit in that location. We've heard all the negatives. What I'd like to hear is some positives that would fit into that location.
I mean, I think we're gonna need, yeah, I mean, that's what I was by the end of the year.
Okay. Well, it'd be a good New Year's story to work on.
Yeah. Depends on how hard they wanna work through Christmas.
That's only 60 days away.
Yeah.
Anyone else got anything on this matter? If not, we're gonna move on.
But when you say you're going to move on, where are you going to move to?
We're gonna wait till the committee comes back to us. Y'all
And
think,
that's
and we're gonna work on the covenants and,
But we've got to get the covenants.
that's right.
I think we've all agreed on that.
Well, that wasn't part of what we just said. It was not, but I'm
Excuse me.
assuming.
We had
that-
talked about it earlier, so I just assumed, and I shouldn't do that.
Don't do that.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. We will be working on the covenants. So if you have anything that you want to see as far as a covenant on that building, I would suggest you contact Ms. Knighton, and then I'm assuming, again, shouldn't, but I assume we will all work on the covenants together before we
I would
try to
think
turn
we
them
should,
over
yes.
to, and we'll wait and hear back from Jennifer and, and I know you will, any homework that you can do on it, and I will try to go on some listservs myself, and we'll see what we can put together.
PNC would be another resource. I'm sure they've done commercial buildings with covenants.
How about the league? Would the league
Well,
be of any
there
help
are
on
really
this?
two things.
Yeah.
You might as well get them in here. I mean, one was the conditions that we discussed at the outset that we wanted to put on the operation. The other are covenants that we're interested in as it relates to the total park and neighbors, the community. I'm not sure how to go about that. But I think we're a long way from making a decision.
I agree. Okay, thank you for your comments on that. Moving on to item number 2, contract for professional services for the redevelopment plan. Anne Marie, I'm gonna let you kind of take this over as far as what you want, or how you want to move forward with this, and then we'll let the committee, if they got comments, to move in on this too.
Okay. The council, as you know, you adopted 2 redevelopment plans and redevelopment zones last summer. I think they were officially adopted in early July. And the next step is for us to identify priorities to target specific properties that we feel like we need to try to acquire. And I'm asking that the council consider allowing me to solicit a proposal from within the community. I know of at least 3 people that are qualified, and I've not talked to them, but that could may be interested in doing some contract work to help keep the momentum going, to help with the administrative work, to keep the effort going. You know, we had so much enthusiasm from the neighborhoods and the citizens, and I don't want to lose that. You know, I'm not here to say I'm, you know, overworked and all that kind of stuff, but I'm trying really hard to keep up with all of the planning and zoning that Sam was doing, and he's gone, and I'm getting tremendous help on that on a day-to-day basis from the planning and inspections office and from the staff within the office. Police chief and fire chief are doing some code enforcement and nuisance code enforcement work. Everybody's, you know, stepping up, but this is such a big, important project. I feel like we need somebody to help us manage it. If we were to hire, or if you were to look at a professional consulting firm, Holland or the Wooten Company, I know they would do a fabulous job, but they would cost an extraordinarily, you know, a lot of money. And I think hiring, you know, testing the waters, if there's somebody out there that we could hire and pay a fair, you know, a competitive rate, but they don't have all that overhead, they don't have that travel.
I think that's a good concept.
I agree.
I like the idea myself. I'd just like to see whomever you were thinking about. I'd like to see their qualifications, and I'd like for, and I don't know how y'all want to send this out of committee. I'll leave it up to y'all, but I would think that if we're going to do a RFP, even for them to look at, we would still want to send it to Holland and Wooten or whomever, send it out and just see if what the difference would be. We know their qualifications, and these people that you're thinking about, I'm sure they probably do, but I'd like to see their qualifications, because I mean, we hired Holland to do this, and there was a lot of technical bits and pieces of it that we would have never known, I'm sure. Even, I mean, the reason we hired him because Sam probably wouldn't have known it. I would like to see it go that way. Now, I don't know how the committee would feel if you're in agreement with that or not.
Sounds like a good idea.
So, coming from the committee, let's try it that way.
go ahead and draft an RFP?
Sure you can.
And then you all can look to approve that at the next regular meeting?
Can, absolutely, absolutely. All right, and then, overview of the, laws and regulations for drones. I guess the chief is gonna give us a quick overview of what's going on.
Yes, sir. Got a little PowerPoint.
Chief, I may have unplugged, got a little confusing over there with all those jump drives.
I think she plugged it back in.
I think we was confused before we got started.
While we're waiting on that, they say this is gonna be the largest Christmas gift
That's why
that people will get this year, is drones.
that's why we asked Chief, remember at the airport commission, they were, yeah.
Okay. Kill that light over there for me. Emery asked me to put y'all together a little brief presentation on the current laws involving unmanned aircraft systems. Like Councilman Biggs just said, it is going to be expected to be a big Christmas gift this year. This is what the FAA calls them. They don't call them drones. They call them unmanned aircraft systems. And the way they define them is any contrivance intended, used, or designed to navigate or fly in the air. So they pretty much control the airways, the FAA does. And a unmanned aircraft system is an aircraft that's defined and subject to regulation by the FAA. So I called and spoke the other day to a guy in Raleigh at the FAA, and he kind of briefed me on a lot of it and gave me some good information. They consider them a model aircraft, and it does not require FAA approval if it meets certain criteria. They will fly these things. It's considered a model aircraft if it's capable of sustained flight in the atmosphere, if it's flown within visual line of sight of the operator, and if it's flown for hobby or recreational purposes. So it's pretty much wide open if it falls under those categories as far as the unmanned vehicles and the drones that we see that are going to be sold at Christmas time. Model aircraft cannot operate in a careless and reckless manner. So there are the FAA regulations that say if they are flying in these manners, that they would intervene in that stuff. They did issue some guidelines, and there are guidelines for these hobbyists that fly these drones. First of all, they have to fly below 400 feet and remain clear of obstacles. They have to do that. They have to keep aircraft within visual at all times. They have to watch the drone that they're flying. They have to remain clear of manned aircraft operations. So there's very strict rules about flying close to airports. They can't fly within 5 miles of an airport unless permission with the airport before flying.
Is that,
Do that. So that's
is that 5 miles straight line, or is that?
5 miles radius of an
Okay.
airport. Is
That
my
would include
interpretation.
the whole town of Edenton.
So that's,
Yeah.
yeah, without flying. And that's pretty close, like I said, to Edenton. They're not allowed to fly near people or stadiums. So we've had some incidents occur over at the football stadium, and Dr. Jackson is actually working on a policy to keep them around there, but they're not supposed to fly near people or stadiums at all. And they can't fly anything in excess of 55 pounds. That puts them in a totally different license. If it's heavier than 55 pounds, it puts it in a totally different category. And of course, they're not supposed to fly carelessly and recklessly of that. And the FAA's got a really good little video for hobbyists that I wanted to show you here. Let's see if I can click on that, and hopefully it'll bring it right up.
So when somebody's flying them under your carport and places like that, that it's too close to your house, is it illegal to shoot them?
Yeah,
Number 8 shot, take them right up.
If it's within the city limits, you can't shoot.
Arrest me.
When I come over my house.
You want to start flying an unmanned aircraft? Projections from the Consumer Electronics Association show nearly 2 million units boats will be sold in 2016. Whether it's for fun or for business, there are a few things you need to know to take responsibility for how you operate. For instance, you aren't allowed to fly higher than 400 feet, or that you need permission to fly within 5 miles of an airport. Did you know that it's also illegal to fly near stadiums? And don't interfere with the work of emergency responders. It's complicated, but we're here to help you fly responsibly. Learn more at knowbeforeyouFly.org. Know Before You Fly was created by AUBSI, the Academy of Model Aeronautics, in partnership with the FAA, and supported by CEA to make sure users have all the information they need to fly UAS safely and responsibly.
So anyway, there's a lot of information on the internet about these unmanned aircraft, aerial vehicles, and how to fly them safely and that kind of stuff. And the FAA pretty much wants to partner with local law enforcement and state law enforcement to help investigate these claims and report it. They don't always have an FAA investigator available to come out, so there are guidelines that have been issued for local law enforcement to follow, where we go out and gather the information, get the name of the person, get that and turn them into the FAA, who then takes administrative action against them. So the FAA would handle all that as far as those things. Now, if they're not operated as a model aircraft, it falls into a different category, and they have to be licensed. So if they're subject to current and future FAA regulations and must have a valid N number and pilot with FAA authorization. If they're flying them for commercial use or for other use, for state use, then they have to have the license from the FAA. And that's a total different ballgame there. And the state and local law enforcement, again, are encouraged with efforts to coordinate efforts with the FAA for enforcement action. So he was telling me all these things about if we see them flying, we need to check them. If they're doing it for commercial, they're like photographing weddings and things like that, and they're charging to do it, and it's supposed to be registered with the FAA with a number, and they're supposed to have that. And there are some state laws as well that cover these. North Carolina Department of Transportation, the Division of Aviation, issues permits for commercial operation and state purposes. Not for hobbyists, but for people that are trying to do it for money. And they have to pass a knowledge test regarding the operation of these vehicles with the Division of Aviation under the Department of Transportation. So they have to have a license not only with the FAA, but with the state to fly these things. And the license is required for commercial operation. You have to be at least 18 years old. You have to have a driver's license and have to pass the skills test. And it's the knowledge and skills test on those things that they have to pass. There is a law regarding the regulation and launch and recovery sites. No launch or recovery from state or private property without consent. Now, this covers both hobbyists and commercial aircraft. So they recently made an arrest at North Carolina State University of a guy that was flying a drone over, and this is what they charged him with, because they were launching it from private property without consent.
And he was flying it over the state fair.
Over the state fair, yeah.
Well, how do you get, are we more than 5 miles from the airport? I would think we're not.
We're not.
So, I mean, I would think that, that would,
That's a good question. I know it's going to be close.
It depends on where you're at. From town limits, you're within 5 miles. From the fire station, it's just over 5.
but that's driving. I mean, I bet it's, you didn't have to go around the roads.
Yeah.
I mean, I just Googled it, Google Maps, and it was, driving that way around was 5.5. Just go straight as the crow flies. I bet it's going to be taking most of the town. I mean, I'm just,
You better tell Santa Claus that before
yeah.
Christmas rolls around.
But there's a provision in there if they notify the airport that they're flying it, and the airport says it's okay, they can fly it. Local government also, you guys could adopt an ordinance. If you wanted to adopt an ordinance to regulate the use of property, town property and stuff like that, we could do that. It might be something we need to look into if y'all wanted to do that. Unlawful possession of and use of these vehicles, of course, you can't attach a weapon to it. I thought that was interesting. And you can't fish or hunt with them as well. It's a felony to attach a weapon to one, and you can't use them for fishing or hunting. And that's a state statute on that. Interference with manned aircraft, this is a state statute. While in motion, flying or landing, that's a felony to interfere with an airplane with one. That's a state law.
Well, it should be.
And another state law says that no person shall conduct surveillance on another person without their consent, a person or occupied dwelling or curtilage without consent. They can't private real property without consent, can't conduct surveillance on that. They can't photograph individuals without consent for the purpose of publishing those photographs, and unless it's news gathering of events or where the public is invited. So there's that little clause in there for that. But there's no criminal violation for this, but it does subject them to civil litigation and can be sued up to $5,000 for one of these violations for persons doing that.
Bad news for the people.
And like I say, they are coming. I pulled this off the internet. This is a company selling them, $299.95. They're going to be selling them for, and then that's another example of one there. So I do expect to see some around, and the officers need to know, about these laws as well, so we can keep the public flying them like they're supposed to.
I do have a question. Have we, or have you, I don't even know how you'd go about it, but have you established a violation?
We have not had any violations.
No, have you established the the identification of a violation? In other words, you're saying what the state laws are and so forth, but locally, I mean, if you have somebody out here and they're flying one of these things, and you arrest them based on, what are you arresting them for? Are you giving them a ticket like driving a car?
Well, they have to.
What's the violation?
All of those things I just told you are violations. All those things is the state law violations.
Okay.
And
then it's,
yes.
What do you charge them with?
Well, you charge them with the individual statute. For example, if they had a weapon on it, that's a felony. If they had another.
Just flying it, say in the town, I'm assuming it's going to be 5 miles
Right.
from the airport.
If they're flying it in violation of the airport, that is not a state law. That's a FAA regulation, and the FAA has a SOP on the UAS.
But you're going to do the arresting. I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, we wouldn't arrest them. What we would do is we work in coordination with the FAA, and there's specific guidelines for officers. What we would do is gather the information. We would get the person's name. We would get the evidence of what they've done. We would build the case, contact the FAA, and the FAA would come down and do the violation for that. Unless it's a state law. State law we can enforce. Federal law we would assist. So we don't enforce federal law, but we do assist them in that. If that helps clarify what you're talking about. Those state laws that I just went over, I'll be glad to give you a copy of those. Those state laws that
Can you go back, Chief, to the PowerPoint?
Oh, I understand exactly what you're saying about the state law and the FAA.
Right. All these guidelines here that they have to follow, if they break one of these guidelines that's not a state law, then we report them to the FAA. And we gather and we document what happened, and we let the FAA know what happened, and they take administrative action against it.
But
So you
guys
don't
still flying
confiscate
it around town.
You don't confiscate the equipment, you just,
Yeah, we probably wouldn't do that. We'd identify the individual.
right.
And take
Good.
photographs of the stuff and let them know, let the FAA know what they did. Now, unless it's a state law, if they violate the state law, then we could take action. Then we could take it. They're flying it from the property of the high school without permission, which is private property, and they're flying it, they have a policy on it, then we could take that action, like they did at the state fair.
That's what I was trying to find out.
Yeah.
So what are you charging with?
You charge them with violation of the general statute,
So, I mean, is it a $20 fine, $50 fine, $100 fine?
that would be up to the courts, but it's a misdemeanor. Some of them are felonies, some of them are misdemeanors, depending on the charge that you charge. General
It'd be
misdemeanor.
$161 to call the court, thank you.
I still don't.
Go get you one and fly it around and see what happens.
I'm trying to decide if I want to.
And this is still, it's still in a plan of action, in action, because we don't really know yet what, as these things develop.
I think you better get ready for it.
That's right, start getting ready for it, but we may have to pass our own ordinance.
I would think so.
5-mile thing is,
Thank you, Mayor. That's all we have for tonight, unless anybody else has got any questions. We're done. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. Public Works is next, rendering of the new police station. Councilman Quinn, please.
I believe that's me.
No, I'm sorry, Jimmy.
No, that's Jim.
Yeah,
We only have one item tonight, Mr. Mayor, and that's the rendering of the new police station, and I believe Ms. Knighton is going to do that for us.
Yeah, I'm really excited. You all received in your packet a copy of the proposed rendering. A lot of thought and effort and time has gone into developing these two renderings. I want to thank Councilman Dixon for helping us. The architects, I think they really spent a lot of time with Chief and myself and a couple meetings with Sambo to really capture what the vision was for this new special building.
good
And
render.
then we encouraged them to look at existing buildings in the community. We pointed out, Chief helped me, on West Water Street, the former Edenton Bay Trading Building, a commercial type building. Looked at Mr. Kirby's building on South Oakham Street. Looked at some buildings on South Broad Street. The entrance is sort of cool with a corner entrance because the building, sits on a corner lot. Sambo was really concerned about the height of the building. He didn't want it to be flat, and so I think the architects heard that, and did a little, Sambo, what do you call that?
Parapet, yeah.
Parapet.
Call it what, Simba?
Parapet.
There's a rendering of it without painted brick. Be interested in hearing feedback from the council. But here it is. We sent it out to the members of the committee that you appointed, that helped you identify the location of the building. And so far, I've heard a few positive comments. Haven't heard anything negative, but have not heard back from everybody. The space, the interior spacing plan is still what you looked at. We made a pledge to keep that right at around 6,000 square feet of office space, and then with the Sally port, it adds about, and some other mechanical room, a total of about 7,000, but it's not 7,000 heated and air space, heated and cooled space.
But that, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's fine with me, don't get me wrong. But isn't that entirely different of what we first came out with? I mean, what happened to the building that was gonna have the porch on the front that fit in with the community? Well, I'm just asking, what happened to that?
We couldn't get the proportions right. It looked like a big beach cottage, actually. There was a real concern. The roof was too much roof, it was just too boxy.
We couldn't get all the things they needed in the side of it. It just became a funny looking facade connected to a bunch of stuff in the back. And it didn't go very far across Oakham Street. It was very narrow on Oakham. And so you had all these parking lot spaces on Oakham, whereas this one looks really like an early 20th century building that would have been there, because there are a bunch of them down the street.
Is all the parking in the rear there? Or is some on the
Side.
on the north side?
Yeah.
There is some on the north
Some
side?
of the, yes.
And is that a flat roof?
Apparently so.
It slopes a little
Good
bit.
slope?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think it slopes.
I mean, I'd love to know that, seriously. I'd like to know if it really does slope.
I think it goes
Because
to the top a little bit down. I'm not sure about that.
You're gonna be asking for trouble in years to come. It won't be our problem, but it will be for somebody if it's a flat roof.
We'll check on that.
I mean, I think it's a good-looking building. I was just shocked when I saw it because it was
Can you
nowhere
go back to-
near what we had talked about. And I
Could you
was
go
like,
back to the
"Where'd
first
that
picture?
come from?"
Well, the first one we
Couldn't make
worked on it,
Yeah.
and so we decided to go with a commercial-looking building instead of a residential-looking building.
I think that looks much better, one man's opinion.
You like it
Yeah.
better?
I like the paint. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's,
I do too.
And I like the brick.
I don't have an opinion, so I'm gonna go with the majority on that one.
You all like,
Well, that is painted brick, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's
What
right.
you're saying, yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
You can buy cheaper brick and paint it, a lower grade.
What's the maintenance? Every 5 years,
No.
paint?
Brick doesn't require as much as,
Painted mine 15 years
yeah,
ago.
I mean, it just
Okay.
like
Done it
wood.
again.
I'd say 20 max.
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Beautiful.
Hope y'all like it.
That's all we have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Where am I now?
Finance Committee.
All right, we're down to our final committee meeting for the night, and that is finance, chaired by Councilman Dixon, please.
So we have two things on. The first is a budget amendment for the police car mobile terminals grant. I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory, but you want to take that, Anne Marie?
That you all have recently approved the grant, and Randy prepared the formal budget amendment so that we can show the revenue in from the grant and then expense it out on the police department.
There was no change in the amount?
No.
No. So we'll send that on to full council. And then the second thing on is the North Carolina Division of Aviation Grant Agreement. Do you have anything to?
This, you all have seen this before.
Yeah.
This is to install a new automated weather operating system at the airport. Pilots need that. It gives real-time weather and atmospheric conditions. It's a $24,000 grant, and we have to contribute 10%. But we hope this is the last grant for a while that we have to give a 10% match, thanks to Airport Commission Jim Callback's work on a governor's task force. He's advocated successfully for a 5%. He tried to get zero match, but I think they're going to approve 5% match for Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. So that would be a big help for our next big project, replacing the fuel system out there.
Did y'all see him, thank him, because he actually comes back from Florida to go to Raleigh.
And he takes
do
it
that.
very
He takes it.
seriously.
He's
Yes, he
just-
does.
We're so lucky to have him on that committee.
Yes.
So we'll send that on to the full council.
Yeah.
That's it for us.
Okay, thank you, and thank you all. That concludes our agenda for tonight, and our meeting is adjourned.